The U.S. Special Envoy for Climate John Kerry and Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov met in Moscow to discuss climate change. The two leaders said that they would cooperate on an issue of common concern despite the strained ties between the two sides of late. The meeting is part of Kerry's 4-day visit to Moscow, and so far he is the highest-ranking official of the Biden administration to visit Russia amid rising tensions. Kerry said that the stakes could not be higher. Lavrov, meanwhile, mentioned that Russia expects close cooperation with the US at the COP26 conference, which is scheduled to take place in Glasgow this year. Lavrov also said that Kerry's visit was an important and positive step to alleviate tensions.
The key is to be able to deal with the climate issue separately, that it's too important, too significant, and that we very much need to move together. The United States is the world's second largest emitter of greenhouse gases. Russia is the fourth. We are among that small group of nations, 20 nations that are equivalent of about 80% of all emissions.
We are among that small особенно в переговорном процессе участников рамочной конвенции с целью обеспечить успешное проведение их встречи в Глазго осенью.
Russia is one of the world's major producers of oil and gas. It is also the fourth highest emitter of carbon. Russian officials have time and again made statements suggesting that the country is taking the issue of climate change seriously. Russian President Vladimir Putin has made the development of the Arctic region a strategic priority. This as the ice cover continues to melt, making the Northern Sea route more accessible. Moscow aims to use this route to export hydrocarbons to Asia, and critics say that Russia has done far from enough to tackle the climate crisis. Climate change is one of the few areas where the US and the European Union are willing to engage with Russia despite ongoing tensions. For more on this story, Stuart Smith is now joining us live from Moscow. Stuart, thanks so much for joining us on WION. Now, tensions have remained high between Russia and the US of late, despite the summit between the leaders of the two nations. And now the two nations have decided to cooperate on the issue of common concerns such as climate change. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, that agreement to continue talking despite all of these high tensions was one of the outcomes of Geneva when President Putin and President Biden met. They said that indeed there are plenty of concerns the US and Russia have and are not willing to cooperate on, but climate change was something they felt was important enough and transcended the disagreements enough that talks should continue. And to get a sense of that as well, John Kerry, in his role as climate envoy, is the first US official to come to Russia. He was also the first US official to come to China to give another sense of how climate change seems to transcend diplomatic spats in other regions. And this gives a sense to how important this is for both sides. You mentioned some of the statistics there, saying that the US is the world's second largest emitter, Russia fourth largest. Also, they're both in the top 5 of the world's largest oil exporters. They both have a lot to gain from solving this issue and working together, but also a lot to lose. Russia's concerned about being able to exploit the Arctic Sea route, as you mentioned, but also being able to potentially get some gains in terms of agriculture in eastern Siberia, which is traditionally very hard to grow crops. A warmer climate there might help boost agricultural yields. But at the same time, Russia has a lot to lose, including the permafrost melting in Siberia, destabilizing the land, causing problems for oil pipelines that lay through that permafrost, as well as heat waves, which we've seen just recently in Russia and St. Petersburg, some very extreme anomalistic temperatures. So the two leaders, John Kerry and Sergey Lavrov, the foreign minister, are talking about what to do. But when you look at their policies, both sides really have a lot to do. Objective analysis shows that it's critically insufficient, the current pledges that both the US and Russia have on the table, and that we're looking at a world, if these policies for these two countries keep going, of more than 4 degrees, which is way above the 2 degrees that the Paris Climate Agreement seeks to achieve.
Right. Now, Stuart, since you mentioned Russia may lose the permafrost, now critics say that Russia has not done enough to tackle the climate crisis. In fact, the EU and the US are willing to engage with Russia on this matter. Will Russia give in?
Well, Russia is cautious that it doesn't want global climate policies to be used as a backdoor to influence Russia's economic and social policies. Russia wants to do this on its own terms, which is why, in a sense, it's so important that the US and Russia are sitting down together bilaterally talking about what exactly that looks like. The US has suggested proposals to Russia. We don't know what those are. They haven't been made public, but the US is suggesting things Russia could do to try to make a difference here without, in Russia's view, seeing to compromise on certain things it holds dear, like the ability to export oil is a fundamental part of Russia's economy. And as much as it's needed to be decarbonised, I can't see that happening anytime soon. President Putin's gone from a position of climate scepticism to one of at least admitting that climate change is real and could cause problems for Russia, even as recently as a month ago when he took the question and answer session that he takes from members of the public where they phone in and ask him questions. He now is saying that climate change is and could be a problem, but the policies don't yet stack up.
Right, Stuart, thank you so much for joining us on WION at this hour, and thank you for all your perspectives. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.